All right, let's get into it. Welcome to the CoPro podcast. It's short for collective progression. It's one of the core values here at Nemo Design. We can anticipate hearing about is a lot of branding stories and a lot of collaboration stories. We get the opportunity to talk to all types, creatives, entrepreneurs, athletes, and people we think are cool. I've got a good one for you today. We got Michigan's finest on the show, Aaron Draplin.
Right, Michigan,
I'm a
yeah.
bit nervous on this one. This guy's done logos for the presidents, he's designed for celebrity, and he keeps it real by doing work for the everyman. I think he's done over 500 events, TED Talks, Adobe Max, and I really encourage you to jump over to the Nemo Design YouTube channel and check this thing out so you can see all the eye candy. Think about it. Draplin's done Nike, Burton, Red Wing, Patagonia, Fender, Cole, Union, NASA, and Arc'teryx. On top of all that, he published a book and is the co-founder of a successful company called Field Notes. Look him up.
It's just a little book.
He's going to go into a few details too on some work he's doing recently with Chris Stapleton and John Mayer. Really excited for you all to hear about this story. And I just love how transparent Draplin really is.
This is what I do with my life.
He sweats the detail on every single project.
Look at how the leaf touches the half of the orange.
He's going to talk about the business of merch, and you got to count how many times he says the word merch.
Merch table, Colorado poster,
The hats will be at the shop.
Timex times DDC. This little sack, stickers, patches, 360 items.
And the grind of just freelancing. The dude has it down to a T. So some great advice here. And the joy of just archiving your mess. He really looks to the detail of keeping things organized.
Just smells like so much possibility.
And he is just really good at helping everybody really be successful. I got Aaron on this little AI experiment. I'm putting him through live on the show, and I think it'd be fun for y'all to check it out. So don't forget to check us out on YouTube, and let's get this thing rolling.
1, 2, 3, 4.
He's no one, she's no one, we're no one.
Because
He
listen, I'm
specializes
going to
in
blow
getting
this
under.
fucker out of the water. Because I do a lot of these, but
Yeah.
this is the one I've been nervous for. Okay, are we ready?
Why are you nervous? Yeah, we're going.
Why am I nervous?
Like,
Because you guys know me when I was a rat kid.
yeah,
And it's one thing to roll in to a bunch of kids who know you based on perception.
right.
And you guys know when it was just starting. And that's just a little bit different. Like this, to do this is more of an ode of appreciation for you guys to give me proper catapults back in the day. Thank you. You know,
Thank you.
I mean, I've thanked Holtz over the years. I've thanked Bartell 74 times, and thank you, Trevor. Nick back in the day, Lumen, because I remember, getting my first tastes of how this was going to work, and people had big degrees. This is in the '90s, though. Big degrees and big things, and there was no way I was going to get my foot in the door on something cool. There was just no way. You had to have accreditation, so that's when I went back to school. So when I got back to Portland, after doing some magazines and stuff, and jumped out on my own, it was scary. And you guys were the first substantial jobs, pinch hitting for Nemo, So, I mean, it means a lot to me because that's what helped me stick and fank up at Ride. I owe them, from my home. They helped me get my down payment on my home, you guys helped me pay off parts of my school loans. I remember, stuff like that.
But it's just one of those taglines, I share with my kids all the time and anybody here. It's like your network is your net worth. And so you want to be surrounded by good people that are doing good things and wanting to work with you.
I remember coming in and already hearing, that people want to be at Nemo, and they want to be at Cinco, they want to be at all the sumos and all
Yeah.
of them, and that defied what I had already seen back in Minneapolis a couple of years before that. If you played the right game even in Minneapolis, and there were all these cool smaller things. But no, you went to the top. You went to Target. You went to these big last name agencies downtown. I just wasn't interested. That's why I took the job to go, back into the snowboard game, and that was 2000. But before I go any further, I brought you some gifts.
Let's play.
So
what
I
do we
brought you
got?
some stuff because
All
I
right.
know as a photographer. Now I know you've probably got a mountain of this, but this is from the estate of my buddy Dale Dixon, who sadly kicked the
Dale.
bucket a couple months ago. Old Dale. But I looked at a bunch, but I just cannot get past the tactile quality
Right.
of every little edge, every piece of packaging, the little metal things inside, all the cool stuff. And I have lots of questions for you because as a guy who spent probably the 80s and the 90s on celluloid, how do you store them? How do you keep track of all that?
That's a whole B-roll right there. We should take you down to the safe and show you what
is it in a
safe?
right? How do you
it's
keep
literally
them,
in a safe.
Yeah, how do you keep them like a climate controlled and stuff? You know, it's like
This brings up so many things for me too. Again, it's like this is Kodachrome, and then you talk about archival, but chemically, Kodachrome is the most stable of the film.
Yeah.
So you have E6 film and then K15 film, which is Kodachrome. And so even when I was working in the photo labs, there was still only maybe a handful, including Rochester, that could actually process this particular type of film.
Yeah.
And that just brings up a whole can of worms as well for me. Again, Kodak. It's like we could probably spend a whole dinner conversation about that brand and the successes and failures of, there's a whole thick book about it. It's just what the hell happened over there.
My buddy passed, and
there's a little dog here.
We went through all of the stuff, and a lot of stuff was donated, and stuff went back to his family, and it was horrific. But there was a couple boxes of old slides, and then the stuff that you would pick up from Fred Meyer's and that sort of level, these little plastic cases. And I just have been playing with them on my desk for months and, looking at a couple of the slides, sure, but really nerding out on just the contraptions that hold them. So anyway, play with them, and
there's so many, so many stories, but this show's about you. And it's like, the first thing you popped out, I look at the detail in this logo, Yankee, and I could totally see you going through a thrift store and just like honing in on just the packaging of this thing alone.
I have one, and I'll keep that one, where the woman listed on the top, you can see there's a list on the top of that thing. Yep. She put a little sentence for every slide from someone's bar mitzvah or something. I mean, amazing. And as I get older,
look at that logo.
And I think about those things, and I think about archiving my own mess and slowing my own mess down. First of all, it's one thing to make a bunch of fun stuff. Another, it's a whole art form how to store it, how to protect it.
What to do with it, I know. We're only here for so long, right?
My buddy Dale here,
Hey, Dale.
For Dale, but, was a junker and an awesome, great friend of 20 years. And he had so much cool stuff. And we're just, my dad was a junker. What do you do with these things? So, these are all lessons, and I've just been thinking about it and how to pare my life down, my records, my books, my things, my stuff. How do you enjoy that? I got a call from the state of Michigan, from this awesome archivist guy there who was like, we're interested.
No way.
I said, am I in trouble? Back taxes or something? And they want to talk about like what would that even look like, and so we went and met him a couple years ago.
No way.
And went through all the stuff and got to see he pulled out this here's the Michigan sketch from 1855 or something that someone had that was going to start to build their first flag and all this. And I was blown away because, the idea of what does all this stuff mean and where does it all go? Well, I'm not really as worried about that, but he just said, let's get you some nice archival boxes, which I already had, to at least store the stuff in. These nice, acid-free sorts of things, just to store. When I got to make the book, that was a fun project, of course. I spent a whole summer doing it in 2015. But really what it allowed me to do was make shoe boxes of before I can remember things. And then being a kid. And then high school. And then moving west. And I did them all. And I still kind of am guided by those, these nice archival boxes. Because if I find something back at mom and dad's, I bring it back out, play with it, and then it goes into these little eras of my life, just to store them safely. And that's a privilege because that's just not what people do, Someone tipped me to this archive guy, and we were talking about how to kind of do this, and I've been really kind of sticking with it. So it's allowing me to start to go back and enjoy eras of my life. And memories are flooding back in. I mean, you go on these things and people say, what'd you do in the summer of 86? I don't know, but now I know. And I've been cataloging it, Well,
there's some science to that as well. I think that we remember in stills.
Yeah.
As a still shooter, of course, that's what I'm going to think. It's my agenda, but I think we think that way. And again, obviously things fade as the brain fades as well, but we do remember pictures a lot more vividly as we get challenged in our 80s and 90s as we get going along in time. And it's interesting. I don't want to make this old guy thing, but again, I had a friend in our neighborhood, Champ, 93-year-old dude. He passed away recently, and I've been given the privilege of coming up with a slideshow.
Oh man.
And then you put this guy's 93 years up on the wall, and it boils down to 15 minutes.
Right.
Like, you've been on this planet for this many years, and here's what we have to represent it.
It's a big
And
task.
there was no archival boxes. There was just pictures in a drawer, and you bring it all together and try to make a story out of it.
Yeah.
But I think it's also, and actually this is happening this week, but we'll find it's the community that he built and the stories that would be told.
Yeah.
Old school, as we kind of continue on in his legacy. So
I mean, that talk is just, I'm just way more interested in that. Conquest is done. I don't need to go any farther or further or bigger or smaller or whatever. I've done it by the improbability and happenstance of the universe. I was lucky to save some coin and put it away. I live very frugal. And at 51 and a half years old, it's about downshifting creatively. As creatively as it took to fight and claw to get to something, now I'm really interested in how to slow it down in an interesting way. And the first thing that's kind of gone is client work. I just, unless it's a big one or unless it's something really fun, then I'll take it. But it's too volatile anymore.
But what a privilege at your life and at this exchange to be able to pick and choose the type of work that you want to do. And I'm sure we're going to get into some of the album covers that you've been doing recently and that type of work. And it just sets the stage for me because I have so many questions for you. Yeah. Is it my turn? I feel like this is a
I know.
white elephant or something.
I brought all, but go.
Well, all right. I got a honey-do list at home.
Okay.
All right. As everybody does, and I always need the right tool. I need you to help me figure out what's the right tool for me to use at my project at home.
The right tool.
What tool is the right tool, Aaron Draplin?
A honeydew? What do you mean by a honeydew?
Yeah, honey-do list. Hey, honey, can you go fix the?
Oh, a honey.
You know.
I'm thinking like some kind of a melon or something. That's from my brains. Okay, and what is the problem?
Doesn't matter.
Oh, I see. I'm kind of confused here.
That's important to get confused.
Okay, good.
I'll take you on a journey, and I
It's a
want
nice snap-on, though. Those
Oh.
always keep their value. That's nice.
That's a good one. That's a good
it's
tool.
really good.
But again, I think the other thing that happens in our lives is our family, including our dads, help us build our toolkit to help us get through life.
Yeah.
And again, it's like the idea is, what tools did your dad help you to get you to be able to sit here today, tell us that you're ready and fiscally responsible to be able to just pick and choose what you want to do right now?
Yeah. Well, how about this? To change the oil filter in my van. Listen, I can take it up to Jiffy Lube on 147th and Forgettable or whatever out there in the Highlands, and I can take it there, and I know they're sizing me up from the moment I roll onto the thing. We got a mark here. His hands are clean. He's got a face like a medicine ball and all that.
Right.
And for that kid to go scroll, and then put a new one on there, they're going to charge you 3 times, and then they're going to scare you and say your rehubulator isn't quite rubbing right or whatever. They're going to scare you. My dad taught me, pull the van up on the curb in front of the house, and 1 cubic Aaron Draplin can slide underneath that safely and go change my own fucking filter, And what's been embarrassing to me as I get older and have a little cake to, pad myself. There was a time I had to solve everything just with these hands or a call to my dad. Brakes in 1993, laying in the snow. The phone is stretched out the window. We're all moved out to Oregon.
Yep.
And my dad showed me, talking me through how to do the clip. And it's like, I couldn't afford it. I went and got a quote. I couldn't afford to take it to a thing 2 blocks away. All these years later, as I start to slow down, I am more and more interested in just being able to take care of, a long time ago, a buddy said, "Why are you doing your laundry? Why are you cleaning your house? Why are you doing the lawn?" Because I like it. I like it. I've hired some people to do it over the years. No more of that. I do it now. I've slowed my life down where I'm not busy on a Friday, and I can just go do the lawn. The guy comes and gets the recycling, and I do this whole thing where I salute the guy. He's just in the big, because I'm out there like getting to know the dirt again. This box alone is just
Right.
incredible. I mean, just you can, just
I'd worry that'd be too big a distraction.
if you can catch that, Nick. Let me just really get on. If you smell that thing, I bigger than that. I don't want to rely on someone to come, and I don't know. I couldn't fix my some little zim-zam on my air conditioner. I asked my phone what it was. I knew what it was, but I had the guy come out. I had to pay about an extra $150, but an expert looked at it, right? But I was this close to going and just buying that thing myself, and I could see where But
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, that comes from my dad, But I also think it makes its way into the way I work too. To be frugal, to be good with your files, to ask a lot of questions, and also just try to be a good citizen when you're, in the heat of it. That guy, the AC guy who he's got a SIG. He doesn't give a shit about my 17 questions, but I've worn him down over the years. This guy from First Call, I've worn him down. It's been there, every couple of years for something. HVAC, heat, cold. But now he's cool with me because in the same way with the project, I tell a client, I'm yours.
Well, they had a special relationship with your dad too, but there's another stat that I've seen. It says that 80% of people live within an hour of where they grew up. However, and I would think like sometimes they leave because their family life isn't such that it's comfortable.
Yeah.
And then in your case it is, and it sounds like your dad had plenty of resources and ways for you to get a job other than where you landed professionally here. Why'd you leave?
Well, I'm going to blame you. I'll blame Morrow Snowboards. I'll blame we were snowboarders, we were skateboarders, and I know I've told you the story, but you were in northern Michigan with the meanest of the Morrow guys, Matt Schlingman. I'll put that right on the thing.
Schling.
I mean, I get it. I was a Grom kid, but I was so excited. And Trevor Graves was at one of our resorts, and we were up there sniffing around. And, not to freak you out, but I had your photos on my wall. I know you've heard that before, but that is the truth. When I got to meet Bryce Knights through Coulter, one of your constituents on here,
We
Coulter,
like that guy.
I got to beat his numbers, and I got to beat Vin's hard, okay? We're working on that. But, God, you had Vin Levecchia. You guys will just have anyone on here, huh?
Aw, come on.
Isn't he just, I just want to absorb him into me and make one even more beautiful Aaron Draplin.
That's a whole nother show.
All of
Make a
Vin's
note, Nick.
beauty and smarts and just smiles and chuckles. It's the older brothers that we heard about. Someone went to Breckenridge in 87, and I wouldn't even have known yet. And by the time I started knowing 89, those guys were already seasoned there. And then another wave, when we're out of high school in 91, they go to Breckenridge, Summit County, the whole bit. It was saturated for us, at least in Summit County. We knew a lot of the people there from our high school, and we wanted to go find our little, gold in the hills somewhere. And that was a couple choice shots of yours from Morrow Ads. And then my buddy Derek Denoyer had a little opportunity with Morrow as like a regional rider kind of deal, and that brought him to Bend. And then we heard about Bend and how affordable it was, and it was the same size as Traverse City, Michigan. And we saved our money the summer of 93, and we moved out west. And I have been kind of caught ever since. My life in Portland has really meant a lot because I didn't have to keep up with the Joneses here. You could have a shitty car, a face like this, a little house. I've had my same house, paid her off in 2018 or 17 or something. I've had success here, and and it never felt like you guys dragged me out to Nike, and it was hard for me because it was big. And I don't even remember this, but me, on the way back going, I can't do any more running projects. She was looking at me across the table, you
Oh,
know,
no,
and
that's
I was
your
like,
version?
well, you guys took me out there
Yeah.
for something, you know.
Yeah,
I
that's
remember-
a good story on my end. Like my version of that was like, oh shit, we fucked up. We brought Draplin in the room because you ended up telling them how core they're not and just getting right into their business. You didn't have any whims on telling them what you honestly felt from your heart and just shared it.
Was that for the boots?
That was the 360 logo. Yeah, that one. I was like, I had a call right after we got out of that meeting.
As in, like, who is this guy?
Yeah, who is this guy? And I'm like,
great. That's great. to
cover
hear.
my ass.
I'm sorry.
And
Shit.
we got the project done, and logo's still out there. It's a great logo, and of course you did it. And then we didn't lose the account, so that's the bigger one. But
Well, I remember there being one time I went out there and it was this big, it was with you guys, big to do, and it was going to be for a new snowboard boot.
mm,
And what they did, you know, is they just took a dunk and went with a dunk,
yep,
and it looked like a dunk. And you know,
Yeah.
here it is behind something, you know, and we're all waiting for this thing to come out, the X7000. She's, you know, sign all this stuff, clunk, and I just went, oh come on, you know, come on, you know, fine. But I hope I did. You know, I just remember, I remember being quiet at the running thing because I just was like, I don't know what I'm doing in here. First of all, I don't
Right.
run. First of all, I don't go outside, much less, you know, like know about sport and performance. But, you know, to go out there, and I went on my own a bunch of times with like, for Nike SB stuff. Michael Hernandez,
Yep.
Damien, just what a sweet creature. Gave me some big ones, and we did them. But it was really from a spot where, like, you know, I grew up skateboarding. The factions that develop between a skateboarder and a snowboarder, we never really felt that back home until we got out west. And then it was like you were a skateboarder or you were a snowboarder.
Yeah.
But we did both. But you know how that works.
yeah, that kind of worked out. But yeah,
You know, it's like interesting. Like when I went down to the magazine, Snowboarder magazine, skateboarder was right there in our building. They kept out of everyone's way. Like, just, we got to know them, but there was a little bit of a wall. And I would say, but I did it back in the day. No. They gave their life to it, you know. And I was on the hill for half the year or whatever. So, you know,
but I think isn't that part of the problem with those cultures? Is that skate it's year round, but snow is really seasonal, and so you kind of break with that tribe for the summer, and then get back together maybe if
Yeah.
you could afford it.
you know, I miss all the guys I got to work with for a bunch of years in snowboarding stuff. I did 11 or 12 years with Brad Schaffel and everybody from Cole Headwear.
Right.
That's my brother. And I did 13 years with Union Bindings, Martino and George and Johan and them for C3. We got to start a binding brand, and it's kicking ass to this day.
Today.
It's,
Yeah.
it's so, and it's been through a couple different hands, but Martino's vision and his expertise. I mean, it really chokes me up because if I was to stop right now, for a lot of years there, I got to work with my friends, like guys I'd be on the chairlift with. I wasn't into it as much at that point because when we came out west, 93 to 98, we rode a lot at Bachelor. Well, if you could afford it, we'd buy a ticket at Jackson Hole and go out there for a road trip or go up to Baker or go whatever. A lot of hiking and a lot of sketchy situations. But, you know, I got to do it. And when it was time to kind of go and start to work, you know, I know that's a privileged position to be in, to say you are with your friends making catalogs and product and things that your friends are going to use. So I feel like very, very thankful for that era of my little half-ass career, you know.
But again, if we look at the whole bookend of your career, again, I'm sure that you're proud of the work that you did with the administration, Obama in that era,
Yeah.
and then down to the Cobra Dog logo. And I feel, you tell me, but it feels like they're weighted the same.
They are.
Some
They
ways for you.
Well, first of all, you know, the perception of the Obama stuff, it's scary because it takes on, like I saw an article a year ago, Draplin designed the Obama logo. No, I didn't. A guy named Saul did. You know, he was part of the team, he was part of some other agency and part of no, and then he was a celebrity for a while. I was an ant that worked on this thing, that worked on one big thing, that was the ARRA, but these things just, you know, they start to connect. Every time I do another podcast or go on one of these big Adobe Max explosions that we go to every year, it gets away from you in a really fun kind of way. But to work for something like that and to see it all over America, or the stamp I got to do,
Right.
oh shit!
That's good.
I mean,
Pop it up here.
that is a true design dream, because I got to, in a really polarized time, make something that everyone gets to use, everyone can afford, everyone can enjoy my design, and stars and stripes, baby. You know, like, I have a tattoo of my favorite logo, which is the bicentennial logo from 1776 to 1976. You know, and I've had a couple hipsters. Oh, what's that? Some kind of Patriot Front bullshit? No.
I just love America.
Yeah, I do. I got to be an American kid and grow up in it, and whatever our dream was, and go and do it, and move west and make it, whatever that means. And also, along the way, fight for people who need a little bit of a leg up. And I'll just say it right now. I brought you this. I made these little fence signs. All are welcome here. And I know that you guys have always been on the forefront of that shit since I met you. So
Yeah, it's
here's
like,
one of those for Nemo.
I think his business is you're blowing it if you don't talk to everybody.
You know, to go back and think about using my skills for America, but also using my skills for my buddy Corey Grove up at government camp. Obviously, the latter means a little more to me, because kids enjoy a hot dog, and kids want to root for the little guy, and food carts are fun, and it's fun to go all day up on the hill and then have a hot dog with your buddy, and they're funny names, and there's good graphics and funny stuff. And I just love my buddy Corey Grove, you know, and I love the fact that, you know, he was in a little bit of hot water. He got a couple cease and desist because they took a G.I. Joe logo and just kind of used it for Cobra dogs. And we went and developed something with these little hands. There's never been a penny paid, just to help him. And design can do that. So when I'm on the road and I talk about the biggest of the bigs, somehow getting to work for Mr. Obama, or Bernie, or AOC, or all the good ones, and then coming back down to the muck, both are equally as powerful to me. Obviously, I've seen more leaps and bounds in stuff that's in my own neighborhood, you know, or working for a restaurant that I get to go to, you know. And I know it's not fashionable because the stuff that might pay the bigger bucks is way up here, but I stacked a lot of those little things on top of each other, and I added up to what it could have been in some larger situation. And I try to teach that on the road. Every job matters. If they're just giving you a hard time and they're trying to take advantage of you, smell it out and stay away. But I talked to a kid the other day. You're getting $1,000 for that logo? Do it. $1,000 is how many times to the grocery store? Add it up. Next 10 or 12 things, you know. And I talked him down from the ledge because he went through a big art school. And he was trained that he's going to get all this. He's 24.
Right.
Take it on the chin a little bit. I did a lot. To this day, I still do it because I'll just say, oh, this is, I take care of my mom, and this job over the weekend, that just bought her a flight out west.
Right.
You know, I mean, little things like that.
Sure.
I'm still okay with all that stuff.
Well, there's the value pricing, and there's a lot. And that's a whole other conversation on the business of Aaron Draplin that brings it up for me. And just the idea of, even in this conversation here, we've talked about frugal.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think Aaron Draplin will spend the money where it's necessary. You talked about the air conditioner, but again, there's things that you don't chintz on. And so how do you differentiate between, okay, I'm going to go cheap here and I'm going to spend where it matters here?
Because it comes from, like, when I go up to Alaska in the summers, you would take a backpack.
That's it.
I'd take my skateboard. Now I have a skateboard. And then one year I got a guitar. And then next summer, I had saved for my computer, that first one in summer of 96. I took my computer back up there with me. Like, how do you check it on the plane? We built this kick-ass foam-encased thing you could drop it from 3 feet. So buddies helped me do that down in Bend, and I checked it on the plane, paid the extra, my Pelican case for 1997, and went up there, and I got to work all summer. The summer before, I was pedaling my ass across town to go to a Kinko's and swiping my little debit card and going hour by hour. So when people say, how'd you learn these tips and tricks to get quick and fast? When you're hour by hour at Kinko's, and not to mention, we get off the train at 10 at night, and I'm back to pedal my ass back home, and I'm to Kinko's by 11, going until 3 or 4 in the morning, and then getting back up to go maybe, do another shift on the train have to be at the rail yard 5:40 in the morning. These things, don't cry for me, but they give you a little bit of grit, because that's the only way I could get a computer.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn that. Now, when you get the computer, I spent everything on that computer. I was talking to a kid the other day. I do these pep talks. I don't make a post about them, and I don't want to ever patronize someone who's feeling a little vulnerable. But I'll tell the kid, like, hey, man, never in my life did I think I'd be able to look at one of these cool cars that I see on my phone, and I go, I'll just go buy that today. That's insane. Yeah. But I don't need that. I drive that orange gas pig until it dies, and it's only got 120,000 on it. I gave my sister my Volvo at the start of the pandemic because I didn't need 2 cars. And see, that's kind of the world that I only kind of know, the limitations you learn to live and work the limitations and the restraints. And I am slowly learning how to just indulge a little bit more in, like, I'm not working this weekend. That's been something new. In the last 10 months, Trevor Graves, I've taken 2 jobs. One for Jason Isbell, doing some posters because I'm a fan. I love working with my buddy Jay and get to work on these things with Jason Isbell. And then another one was for a big thing I can't talk about because I signed a PDF this thick. But that's been 2 things. Now, Field Notes is going along. Skillshare videos are going along. Right. We go on the road a little bit, once a month maybe. And then we sell a mountain of DDC merch. Well, while I've got you guys here, Draplin Doc, I just kidding. So
every hour.
But
I pulled the stats on that. Do you know this? Like I analyzed all of your speaking engagements, pulled down how many times does Aaron Draplin say the word merch, and you are saying it every 10 minutes.
Oh, really?
In an hour-long speech.
Let me just check my watch I'm not wearing here just to make sure it's
the merch that he's got.
That's DDC 100.
But maybe that's another lesson from your dad too. Is like, I think you do it in a very authentic way. It doesn't feel like a snake salesman when you're going and you're talking about it. It feels like, hey, I'm here, you're here. This is how I support my living. Can you help me? As opposed to like, I need to make a sale now because there's a big guy that's measuring my performance on how I'm selling. Yeah. So I need to kind of get in front of you in a less than comfortable way. So what is it about that? You got this soft sell technique about you that is very, authentic. It's honest. It feels like I want to buy that thing because you're a genuine dude. Tell me more.
Oh,
how can I be selling merch?
Well, yeah.
And the next question I'm going to ask you again is I want to take it down your business model, right? So again, it's like we've heard about Field Notes and you've been at it a while. You've got your merch, you got your speaking gigs, you've got paying gigs, and then you've got freebie deals that you'll do for the love of it and maybe even just for the marketing of it. So maybe segue that way.
What comes out of this whole thing is like I was trained to get a call from the pedal company. And I get to put the cake decoration on there, and I get paid this much, and then they go sell it for lots of it. That's fine. That's fine.
Yep.
A shoe calls you, you put a little label on the shoe, and they go sell a lot of shoes. What happens when you make the pedal? Something changes. And that was with Field Notes. Still alive over here, Hank. Anyway, HankMakes.com, you guys, go check it out. Anyway,
that guy.
My son. So I gave birth to him. But he's so cute. When I made my first Field Notes, something changed in me because it was like the power got taken away from someone who would hire me and I would do a good job and I would be on time and do the thing and do the stuff to, well, wait, I can make a little profit on this. And the little's the key word because that added up over a lot of years. And that directly comes from Bob Gundrum. I don't know if you know Gumby.
I don't. Oh, Gumby, yeah.
Yeah, Gumby. Well, a long time ago when we were starting the brands, C3, we'd toil over the catalogs and toil over the union catalog. And one time Bob says, Draplin, we're not selling catalogs. He really snapped me. I went, ooh. Because I wanted to have the right polish so we could look like one of the big ones and right away. And he said, you are going to see stuff happening right now. Who's the biggest thing right now? And at the time, I was just getting out of my time in Southern California, and it was Forum. And they were the biggest, hottest shit, and they had the biggest booth and the biggest budgets and the biggest team and everything big. And Bob was like, Draplin, we're going to grow by 1% to 2% a year the next 25 years. And he did. And I got to go up there to do a talk 3-4 years ago before the pandemic. And I got super emotional with him because C3 had like 150 people running around, 200 people running around in the back, in the warehouse, in the things. It used to be 7. And then 2 rats in the back that I would go back there and gamble with or something, like that we'd go to lunch with. He did it. And I kind of did that too. Slow and steady wins the race.
Slow and steady.
Little tiny things do add up. You can get the big ones, exploit them, be a good citizen, do the job, but understand you have to pay a mountain of taxes. So that's when I say, I haven't done much client work. The one I can't talk about right now, I'm in the holding pattern now, and there's nothing I can do. I contracted a window. I have to be done before these dates because I have to drive back to my mom and dad's or my mom moved back to Michigan.
There's a lesson there too, everybody.
I get to go to Rapid City about once every 3 years with a buddy, Jason Alley, and we are connected with some guys who are some Lakota guys, and I'll do the talks, and we don't really, there's no more charging for any of that shit. If I can get my ass out to Rapid City, I'll help those kids any way I can because
Thank you.
there's just not a lot of people going to help them.
Well, that seems like there's this other authentic part of your DNA that generally wants to help others. Like the word that kind of came up for me, or the theme, is like underdogs.
Yeah.
You're always rooting for the underdog or doing the work to help the underdog, where it's just as easy and you can get one job with the big boy and call it a year, but you actually will take the time and help that underdog. Tell me why.
Well, I'll show it in a couple of funny little things here. This is a record by a guy named John Davis, who's in a band called Super Drag. Now, if you guys remember Super Drag from back in the 90s, they had one big hit called Sucked Out, but they were really good-looking guys. And I loved the Jesus Lizard and I don't know what else, Archer's a Loaf and all this shit in the 90s. And I remember seeing them at the record store, and I passed it up because I just thought they were on MTV, but they hit it big. And boy, did I screw up because I love those Super Drag records. I passed them up because I thought they were I thought they were something big on MTV. They were for a week, and that's the week I saw it. And I just went back to all my indie, schmindy crap and sad bastard music. 20 years later, 25 years later, their little legacy, it's severely appreciated by me because the records are fucking great. And I listened to them. They sound as vital to me. I missed it. I got to know the band a little bit. I went and saw one of their reunion shows in Knoxville a couple years ago through my buddy James Spears. Got to meet John. A year later, John calls me to do his solo record. Now, we never even talked about money. I just said, I'll do it. I'll just do it. He tried to pay. I got to make a record for John Davis, and this record rips. And they just turned out absolutely beautiful with the orange vinyl. He made enough to, that you could, get them and stuff. And
Bingo.
The key word is I got to work for someone that his talent. I play guitar. I write a song. I forget a song. I learn a song. I forget a song. John makes shit on records, and it's listenable as all get out. And I got to make a record for him. Now, why I show this is because it's like, you might look at it and go, that looks like a $10,000 record or a big record. It wasn't. Through that, my favorite band in town was a band called Richmond Fontaine. Willie Vallotton, a writer. He's like a tumbleweed. He's from Reno, and he's got on any number of books. They make movies out of his books. He's in a new band called the DeLines, but my favorite band in the 90s was a band called Richmond Fontaine. Towards the end of their deal, I got to do a couple records for those guys. This is probably my 8th or 9th record I've got to do for Willie and all of his stuff. And the trust that he has to put into me to do his record. Sure, I get paid. He pays me very well. And that's for a local thing in town. This is some of the best work I get to do. And, we find the photographer, and then I go, take him off on the back. And it gets even more haunted,
Where'd the dog go?
Little coyote, and then nothing. Because all the songs kind of sound like that. They kind of sound, and I do all the type and all the things and all the stuff, and we put a little poster in there and, goodies and postcards and things. Anyway, these things aren't big money makers, but I love records, I love bands, I love music, I love things. I love getting the thing back into the sleeve if you can, but I'm on the spot here. But what happens when one of the biggest things in the world call
That guy.
and want to do some of this? It is the same process. It is the same grit, spit, chafe, and everything else, but on a giant level for a Chris Stapleton. The first pressing of John's, I think he did a couple thousand. awesome. That means we all can get a couple copies, and everyone who's a fan can get it quickly before they're gone. The DeLines, maybe a little more than that. The first pressing of this, I was told, was going to be around 200,000 pieces of vinyl. 200,000. I think they did 160. We had to, check the Browns the second time because Brown's hard to print. Anyway, I got to work for Chris Stapleton, and that was a big. At one point, these guys had, look at the photography from all their
Road trips.
It's like their internal people. So here's the thing. I'm probably speaking out of line here, and I apologize to the Stapleton camp, but they can afford whoever they want. They're in Nashville. They're at the top of the game. They can afford any big photographer. And I remember getting involved and saying, there's this guy named Andy Barron who's just a kick-ass photographer. He travels with them. And I said, can I just see Andy's B-rolls and see stuff? Because there's a lot of kick-ass stuff. He shoots the stuff that night. And the next day it goes on their Instagram, and then they're on to the next night.
Right.
But I saw the in-betweens.
Right.
And all this really beautiful stuff. And then this gal, her name was Becky Fluke, and they hired her for a bunch of stuff. Incredible photographer. She got the cover. I just went through some stuff from a couple years before. We have to pay for any of this stuff. We already paid for it. That's the world I only know.
Right.
And, I remember the guy Draplin. Chris doesn't like a camera in his face. I already know that. I read that about him. And what do we have on ice? That's the truth with that. Mm-hmm. And we, frugal or not, it's like an homage to the stuff that gets lost, and just the power of those guys playing every night. But there's the cosmos. I mean, this is supposed to be a country record. What's the country themes? Daddy's hands, bigotry, good old boys. What's the other stuff? Fucking up women's rights. It's all the stuff that sells. Stapleton's not like that.
Good.
And I don't know. He's talented as shit. They're good to their roadies. They're good to the guys who put up all the lights and all the goodies and all the good to the guys I get to work with. Their management. What a privilege to work for that. But also, what a weird way to be like, we don't need to go spend that money. We can just do this and really pay homage to the people that are out there in the nuts and bolts every night. So I don't know. That came directly from the snowboard world because we just didn't have a lot of budget. Sure. And a lot of moves, and we had to make a lot of moves on a big catalog with a little bit of stuff in my backyard shooting shit.
Yeah.
Correct. I remember one time. Here's a funny little side story. Since we have 7 hours to work with here, one time Martino Fumagalli's looking over my shoulder, and I have a white binding and I have a yellow binding, and these hands which are like a 5-pack of Johnsonville bratwurst. When you go over to Safeway when you're over there shoplifting, and my hand, on the keyboard, and he sees me on the hue satch.
Oh, no.
And I just twist the bar on the yellow, and it goes from yellow to orange to red, and he's like, whoa.
That's it?
Go back and show me that again. And I go, yellow to red to whatever. And he goes, no more shooting the yellow, the red, the orange. Like that day.
Yeah.
Whoever was shooting, and I would go through and take all the burrs off everything and Photoshop all the stuff out of there. I wasn't even thinking that way. I was just taking orders and doing what I was supposed to do. And George would show up with all these awesome, we'd clean them all up and clip them, get the angle right, and get all the pieces and Frankenstein the parts. And we'd have a yellow binding and an orange binding and whatever. Okay. A couple years later, they figured out how to do it just all digitally. And here's the funny part. I'm spending 2 hours on a binding at this big on my monitor. It's going to be this big in the back of a catalog. Because the guy goes, I'll do 40 of the yellow, more of the orange, more of the black. Okay. That kind of folly comes from having no budget and learning how to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So when these guys called me from these targets or some of the bigger things I've been lucky to work on, it's always refreshing that I'm not crying about those limitations.
Well, here's the other question I have for you that really is I'm just super curious about. Again, is you are a epitome. Again, Nemo's a brand agency. And you're a personal brand, you're a human brand, not let's call it a product brand.
Yeah.
And so you walk the street, and you shared earlier a story of going to the airport, and kids run up and they get flabbergasted because you're their hero, and then you got some field notes for them to get them stoked and keep that vibe going, because that energy is what feeds feeds the merch sales at the end of the day. But there's two thoughts I have is like, when I think about other personal brands, like Carrot Top, he's got to run around with that red hair and he's got to have it. And then there's definitely the persona, and it's here today. You got the hat, you got the gruff beard, you got the jacket, the buttons. It's like, does it ever go away? And then is that a blessing or a curse?
It's interesting, you go to the airport and someone sees you coming, but it's like baggage. I don't have to worry about keeping up with some kind of really anything. It's like I've been lucky to be comfortable, and the things I knew as a kid haven't changed a lot. I saw all the phase shifting go down in the 90s. Kids go from skateboarder to grunge to druggy to clean cut to tech to whatever the fuck. What's the next one that I'm not ecstatic dance? Now there's a whole podcast.
I want to see that.
Getting real weird. I'm not doing any ecstatic dance today. Anyway, you see people go through these shifts and phases. Fine, do what you got to do. If I've just been this kind of barnacle all these years, I'm just thankful to be comfortable. Because listen, she's like, well, what do you want? I haven't shaved since 2006, and that is nothing strategic. I just don't like to do it. And then you start to grow. I came into my man body when I was 30 years old. You could actually grow a beard. Because I've had guys come to me for articles. We'll sponsor you, and why don't you have a podcast? We'll sponsor you, and we'll do this, and we'll do that for our beard oil. And I always take the stuff, and I go, well, you're not supposed to drink it. And I have my thumb. You're not supposed to. Because who puts beard oil on their beard? This wasn't an act. It's about being comfortable in your own skin, and just Now it becomes this thing of blue collar. It's like I have 2 money managers that help me manage my little half-assed fortune I was lucky to rat hole away. There's nothing blue collar about that.
Mm-hmm.
These hands, feel them. They're pretty soft. I told you.
No calluses.
Put the stuff on. Like when things become a parody, then I I smell it and I try to back away and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. I just like bad hats. That's just the long and the short of it. And I like the idea that I'm making things more and more and more that don't have a big DDC slapped all over it. It's just making fun of becoming middle age.
There you
Because
go.
Heavy metal is kind of a thing in town here. And everyone looks all tough. I want to look tougher, but I don't want to say,
I'm tougher than you.
encephalitic, seborrheic, dermatitis or whatever the hell these bands are called these days. I wanted to say middle age because it's weird becoming older. So to make goodies like this and stuff like this, my favorite part of the merch is that 7-year-olds like some of the stuff we make. And that's it.
Litmus test.
That's it. Because it can be kind of simple enough to make that there's nothing ironic.
Right.
There's nothing whatever. There's nothing that excludes anyone. And on top of that, price also. I set up these things and everyone's got UPC codes all over their shit. And I'll just make sure if they big league me, oh, you're that Draplin guy, and you do that. And I just kind of, and I'll make sure I just somewhere during the day, during the event, loud enough, I'll just kind of go, well, they're selling big over here, but over at the DDC, you just do a $10 handful, whatever you want, just to see what they kind of, because everything's all on a thing, and divided by the angle, the dangle, and all this kind of
Indeed.
bullshit. So,
But that's also again, with the consistency and knowing what you're getting when you hire Aaron Draplin to do a design or a logo, you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
And so when I think about just how hard it is to be a household name as a designer, as a photographer, I at least get a little photo credit, so there's a little opportunity there. But then on the magazines anyway, you're kind of in the front and everybody flips through that. But you end up being a household name, and then these musicians are calling you personally to kind of come do their stuff. And so congratulations, that's super hard to do. I'd say you're in the 1%. Would you consider yourself in there with Salt Bass, and obviously we can't go by.
oh my gosh, yeah.
He's a pretty big name in that industry and done some amazing logos, but also think about other guys that are sort of in that with David Carson and just being hand done and what he does. It seems like the trend will come back to what he's doing because the computer right now and the AI, which is an exercise I want to take you through here. But it's like, I'm not a designer. I own a design studio, but I am not a designer. And obviously with AI's coming, we're talking about it here. And then I built a prompt put it into my tool. We'll run it on the thread
Okay.
here. But again, I said, be Aaron Draplin, and let's talk about the WNBA and the new fire logo, right? And so a lot of the designers in the shop have an opinion. I'm excited for them to be here. And then it's just an exercise. Is like, we don't know what the brief is, we don't know what their demo is, we don't know who they're selling merch to, but let's just put it in and see what it comes out with. And again, it was really interesting in how it worked. It came through and it had all the fat and thin poster. It pulled up as reference. It talked about your speaking engagements and all the things and projects that you've done. And then it puts it into its little brain, and it came back with a couple of solutions. Can I share those with you?
Yeah.
So again,
I've only
this is AI by Aaron Draplin, critiqued by Aaron Draplin.
Yeah.
All right. So this came out.
Oh wow.
Portland Fire. So it said, for those that are driving and listening to this on the cloud, it's like we've got a bridge and there's a rose and there's a basketball, and it's in a badge kind of format. Critique this for us.
Well,
How did
first of
AI
all,
do
it's-
today?
I mean, it's got really beautiful line balance. The colors are nice. You know, it's successful that it works in a nice shape. And if this was spit out of something, this is terrifying. You know,
That's where I'm going.
And I mean, that's right. And it's like, for me to go tell this kid, I have to tell myself, you know, craft is something. Because listen, I remember about 4 years ago, my buddies in the heavy metal community, the guys were, some guy in a band could dial up that GPT thing too and say, hey, make me a clown with bleeding eyes and antlers and fun shit and kind of mountain. But there was a dead look to it.
Yep.
And there was a certain scent that was like kind of like became predictable because it's a piece of software, you know. But this is scary because if you told me Jay and his crew developed this just a couple seats away from me,
Sure.
I wouldn't challenge it one bit because
Right.
I've seen the moves Bartel knows how to make. It's like, oh
They
shit.
could do Draplin.
I mean, well, what I'm saying is like, it's really well balanced, and damn, that rose is super nice, you know.
Here's the second one. Again,
Yeah, I see where it's, you know, it's gleaning these things.
so I see that the rainbow fade in the background is sort of Draplin-esque.
It's really scary.
I know.
And
then
it's, you know, I mean,
here's
something
the uniform. That was the last piece of it,
something
but
like this. I mean, look
they
at this.
kind of
I mean,
went with a
it's-
firefighter uniform for those that can't see it yet, but
you know, what's
instead of another way of theme, and this is the way they thought Draplin might approach this.
well, what's so tricky is what computers showed me back in the 90s. You could do every single thing you wanted. I'll try to be gentle here, but come on, Scott Klum, before computers, he was doing it. He was one of these David Carsons. You know, I learned from him. But when it was my turn, I didn't want to make scritchy stuff.
Right.
You know, I wanted to make things that worked for me or worked for whatever. You know, I see that like this. I keep looking at this. You know, this incredible brushy over here. I remember that just taking us by storm. But there were limitations in the late 60s and early 70s and 70s. That's why some of these things look the way they do, because they were making it with Rubylith.
Literally.
And like little pieces of tape and all this kind of paint and stuff. And it was like simple lines because it was easy to photostat camera shoot and then produce and change and tweak. So there's some history there, and to unearth that stuff and then make it something that is like, you know, I would just say if that's what it's gleaning from my name, I'm really proud of that, because the stuff I teach in a course, in a class online is like line balance. The line needs to be the same thickness as your type. Using your colors, you know, don't make these, have enough contrast between these two and have enough contrast. I know it's some nerdy stuff, but
Sure.
really well balanced. And that's all good stuff. But there's just something about sketching in your field notes and getting weird and just seeing what happens.
Happy accidents.
And it's happy accents sometimes, or it's drawing Ozzy at a coffee shop the other day.
Dude, Ozzy.
You know, thank you, sir, for your wonderful life lived. You know, but I still go here. Well, we're sitting at a coffee shop and drawing the world around you. You know, I just sit and do this because I've been drawing a lot more. 'Cause
Right.
I'm just getting tired of everything being a, you know, .ai. And the magic on this page, that's what I'm gonna tell this kid. Go make something for someone you love. Start on paper. Trust the process, and then use the tools ferociously that I didn't even have. I didn't have a computer until this summer and that summer and this thing. You have all this stuff at your fingertips. There's no excuse. Can AI do it better? So what?
Again, it's like with anything, it sounds like you have to evolve for the moment to keep ahead of things and reinvent yourself as new things and new challenges come ahead. And so with AI, again, I don't hear that you're, you know, butthurt that it's ripping you off, because it's just reading the algorithm. I always picture like musicians on Spotify and the financial thing hasn't really been figured out on AI because it's just grabbing New York Times and whatever, and now it's grabbing what it knows of you, and it's being able to replicate you without you being in the room.
I saw
Sorta, not really.
something a couple weeks ago where a band was AI'd, their face was
Oh, yeah.
AI'd, and the music was AI'd, and it hit some certain thing because it was like a grunge tribute or something. What do you say to this stuff?
Well, they
I don't know.
they policed it down too. They can't
Yeah.
they can't get paid if it's AI.
Well, people were
generated.
pissed because they got taken.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of see it in the eyes when they fake the Metallica guys or something doing something, some moment that never happened.
Mhm.
They're going to figure this out. But what's going to happen is it's going to go back to a time. Like I just did a bunch of cards for Egg Press. And it's not Aaron Draplin cards. It's like just state cards. They're going to be really cool. Because people still like to get a card in the mail
Yeah.
and say thank you for a fun thing or say happy birthday. And if we lose that, I don't know. But that's still people have already gone about. You know how I use? Listen, I go on the road and I get hit hard. Well, how do you use this? And what do you think about this strap? Stop. I used it on my new website simply to clean up my syntax and simply to clean up the things, the I before E, except after C, and all those sorts of things that we missed. The TEHs that I had, and there's a lot of those. Should have been THE. Well, that was instantaneous. That's how I used AI. I did not use AI to write the site. I've been seeing that shit. And it says at the end, that's so weird. Because what if you don't say it? I wrote it, comes from these hands, but I use that thing to help me clean something up. It's no different than like, clean up my desktop real quick. Those sorts of things will be able to do that. But it's like, the idea of like, make me fall in love with this machine. That's some scary stuff. I don't have a big stance against it as much, but just because I'm just excited that a pencil on paper in my field notes is enough for an afternoon for me. Like talking with friends,
People aren't really paying. When I think about what people are paying you for, it's creativity and curation.
Yeah.
And the reality of all those life experiences that we've shared today on the podcast have built you to make decisions on what's good and not, as you described the weight lines, etc.
Yeah.
Because of those experiences that went into you as an individual that AI could never, ever recreate. And so those, I think, creative roles will become more sought after as people get sold out. And it's funny because as I was preparing for this memorial service, it's like this guy had these crazy photos of him. You only took a picture every once in a while because it was so expensive.
Sure.
But he's standing. He built the bowling alley, and he's standing next to the machines. But yet, if you ask like a parent today to provide pictures for this slideshow, it'd be a picture of their dinner on Instagram or another birthday party or something. And it isn't the weight of photos and taking pictures has gotten so muddled. And it's just not as important as it used to be. But curation, and you have it in spades, and even if you did kick it out on AI, you still have to critique it to say, yes, this is worthy.
Or how about this? What about when someone loses their file from 2005 and they can't find their things and they call me up and I have it one click away because I was trained to be good with my files and keep everything updated and have it on ice and have it properly backed up. And when the cloud came out, I went and spoke at this Dropbox thing in San Francisco. I had like a talking to, because up to that point I was bringing all these hard drives and shit with me. That changed my life where it was all on the cloud. It took me about a month, and I put however many scrigabytes up online. I put my entire digital life online. But about once every 6 months, some old snowboard guy, someone will call and say, we just can't find this file. Where is this? And I've got it for him.
Whoa.
And my vaults. Now, that is a service that you kind of provide.
Yep.
And when you come into these projects and say, just so you guys know, this happens all the time. In a year from now, you lost your machine or whatever, I've got it all backed up, the entire project. That's a service I provide. Not to mention, hire me again, we're right back in it again. Because, we did the meat of it already. So, when I tell these young guys, this young gal I was talking to was just so frustrated, and how do I even get a call? I said, you just need to go show your work online. Are you making things right now? A little bit.
Make things.
Make things. Because you show it, maybe I'll see it. Maybe I'll hire you. Or maybe someone will, you just have to stay in this game. You were privileged to go to school. What are you doing? So I give these little pep talks all the time, and I'll just say, you're a service person. and your ability to make people comfortable and be quick with an email and be good on the email and keep your cool, oh, they'll smell it. And then they're going to call you back a couple months later. And I mean, I just did this for 25 years. We'll get a call back 6 months later, jump right back into the project, have it right in front of them. What's the tweak? Make us another T-shirt. Bam. That shit adds up. You know, it adds up. And that was part of being a good citizen, as much as providing a good creative service or something, but also just helping people manage where the stuff even goes, giving it to them in the proper formats and all that nerdy stuff that I love toiling over because I know it'll save them a lot of time later on. You know, I do these tips and tricks on the road, and I just explain a clean desktop is a happy desktop. If you're looking for shit, and why open 17 doors when you can open 4 and get to the 4 and get to the 4, nice round numbers, be logical. This is your footprint. This is how you operate. If you're having to spend time looking for shit, beautiful file names, you're not going to get away from this. These are good. This is good craft. So, you know, that's all on a digital screen. Now I'm trying to do good craft on Aaron Draplin. Down 27 pounds. I'll be your size by the year 2049 or your size by the year 2051. So, whatever. But we're making a lot of changes. And, you know, I mean, I'll whip the phone out. Don't make me do it, but I'll show you the average 4.1 miles a night I've been doing.
Good for you.
And that's just Aaron Draplin walking around these neighborhoods, looking
Scaring
in
little
windows,
kids.
and just stopping and scratching myself on some corner, and then going, all right, 2 more miles to go. Anyway, I've been doing that all summer long, and instead of working all the time, you know.
Well, the cortisone goes down if you're walking. In
In fact, I'm going to get Jess Gibson to come out there, you know.
All right. Pencil or Sharpie?
Pencil.
Thick line or no lines at all?
Thick lines.
Didn't even hesitate. Morning design.
Well, how about this?
All right.
To sound intellectual for a change, it's what the client asked for. See, I get a lot of shit where guys will call me and say, just do you. And it's like, that's just not appropriate. I will all day long. Shit, cash the check right now. No. What's going on here? Because some of my funnest stuff that I get to mess with people on the road is to say, this was this tiny little girl. She's the weight of my leg. That's it. And I was able to work for her and be appropriate for her design and her design needs, and you'd never know it.
How about early morning design sprint or late night grind session?
Yeah, anymore it's early morning because that late night stuff is, I've made some changes, and I only work until about 5 or 5:30 now.
All right.
But if the muse strikes, my shop is 8 steps away, and I wake Lee up. What do you know, there's an explosion of hair and fur and folds and flaps and sheets and things, and lights getting turned on, because I'll go out and do a midnight to 6 in the morning shift if it's on. And I try to keep that, you know, around because I did that for a lot of years and met a lot of deadlines and made the money too. But anymore, I'm better at managing my time. Yeah.
So again, the other one that we do here is CoPro is collective progression. So is it Aaron Draplin working solo, or is Aaron Draplin working and collaborating with a big team? Which one?
I can do both. I get to collaborate with my little smoochy Lee, who I've been with for 17 years.
Does she have glasses?
Yes, she does.
Is she still hanging? Okay.
I know. My dad used to say, if she gets her vision checked and actually sees you, things can
Thanks,
be a little
Jim.
weird.
He's talking with us. He's talking through me right now.
Anyway.
Thank you, Lee.
You know, for just weathering the storm. You lucky girl, you. You know, you ought to, Nick, wait till you meet her. She's great. Anyway.
Where can we find you? What are you gonna sell me today?
I was going door to door in the neighborhood here. Well, you can go to Draplin.com. Now, listen, this was a screw up here. I made it. Some kid wanted a thing to send to Europe. His name was Bruno, and then we lost communications. But here's a book for you, for someone named Bruno in the shop. You know, Draplin.com, FieldNotesBrand.com, DDCBook.com, DDCFonts.com.
Oh yeah, the new fonts out.
You know.
It's being used.
Yeah.
But I'd love for you to sign this for me.
Sure. Now I'll do it the way we do it on the road.
How's that?
Well, I do it like this, and I go, okay, TREV, okay. and see. And I go like this, and I go, okay. I go, I give it a little extra spice. And because I'm seated, I won't go between the legs, the credit card swipe, but I give them extra spice on the road. You know?